More Than a Passing Glance, Early Christian Art, written by Susan Elliott. It's available on Amazon and through CreateSpace as well. In this book, I've tried to merge my passion for early Christian art and my love for the Bible. It's really a layman's guide to early Christian art. It's a unique Christian perspective on ancient concepts and symbolisms. I try to help readers to learn about the early Christians, what might have motivated their art, the messages that they left behind through their art. Really, I wrote this book for anyone who ever looked at Christian art and wondered. I remember sitting in my art history class at the University of Arkansas and being amazed at the works that were created during the early Christian art period. Typically, that's the time from around 200 to the mid-500s. I remember that my teacher had us analyze the catacomb paintings, and I really found them fascinating. One of the things we'd do in class was explain what each of them meant to our classmates. And the first time we did it was very cold. I wasn't sure what to say, but it became easier as time progressed. But one of the ones I remember that was really striking was the theme of Noah's Ark. You kept seeing it over and over and over again. Catacombs, sculpture, sarcophagus. It was just there. And most of the kids understood that it was referencing to the destruction of the world during the Noahic flood. That's a pretty obvious reference. But most of them, if not all of them, didn't understand the reference to 1 Peter 3:20 through 22. Now that states, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a-preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. The like figure whereunto even baptism doth also now save us. But the answer of a good conscience towards God, by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is gone to heaven, and is on the right hand of God, angels and authorities and powers being made subject unto him. It was a easy reference when I saw it, that the early Christians were probably painting about the importance of baptism. They were wanting people to understand that baptism was essential. It gave them hope in Christ. And I really started thinking about that, and I started thinking about the other images, such as the Good Shepherd or the sacrifice of Isaac. There are just so many things that they left that they want us to know about, and I felt like it was something that we really as a whole had neglected in our studies. So really started digging, and that was the catalyst really for this book. I have used this book as I was writing it. I taught a studio art history class where it was hands-on art history, and I used some of this book then. I'm currently teaching this book in its entirety to a class with hands-on art projects to kind of go along with it. For example, when we talk about fresco painting, which is how the catacombs were painted, the wet paint and plaster. So we are experimenting with wet paint. Instead of mixing the plaster like I did in my previous class, we used wet sculpting clay, simply because it doesn't make such a mess as the other did. But we discussed all that. We've making tempera paint out of crushed chalk and egg yolk. It's really a great book for students. It's a great book for teachers, and it's a great book for Christians alike. It's a subject we've never really talked about much, and I would recommend anyone who has an interest in history and early Christian art to pick up the book. Thanks so much for checking this out, and I hope to hear from you soon. Remember that you can read more about More Than a Passing Glance, early Christian art, at churchofchristwomenauthors.blogspot.com.